UFC President Dana White has just revealed some massive changes happening to both UFC and WWE events moving forward, as we could see WWE PLEs and UFC pay-per-views happen during the same weekend moving forward. We're going to talk about what Dana White had to say. I'm going to let you know, and we're going to talk about the impact it's going to have on the business of TKO and also the experience of fans. And let me tell you, some fans are probably going to be a little disappointed in some of this news, but we'll talk about it. We're also going to give a pretty big contract update about Becky Lynch, who has yet to sign a contract. We're going to tell you when her contract is reportedly up, according to FightfulSelect.com. All that, much more coming up in this video, so be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Let's get right into it. So Dana White, president of UFC, this weekend at the St. Louis show was asked about WWE, and here's what he said, quote, "You're going to see Friday Power Slap, Saturday UFC, and Sunday WWE. You'll start seeing that stuff too." So a massive shift in both the vision and the presentation of WWE PLEs looks to be happening, as over the past 2 years, we've seen WWE shift their ideology. They used to obviously have their pay-per-views and their big PLEs traditionally on Sundays. That's the date. That's when they would have them. However, over the past 2 years, we've seen them shift to Saturday. And that model has seemingly been better for people who are traveling, has definitely been better for the wrestling media, has also been better, quite frankly, for the WWE as far as being able to kind of have Friday Night SmackDown be a thing in the same arena as the big PLE the next night. And, you know, like you could obviously do the same thing with Raw the next night, but it kind of makes it a more weekend-long thing than it used to be. So obviously there was always going to be this discussion of, you know, combining these weekends. There had been talk that we could see this, but there hadn't been much movement and much information flowing out until Dana White made these remarks this past weekend. So what does this mean as far as the experience goes? I know that personally, I'm someone who has enjoyed the Saturday PLEs. I love having the ability to watch the PLE, you know, wake up the next morning, not have to go to work. That's a big deal for me and many fans out there who don't work the weekends or have to go to work on Mondays. Staying up late and you know, like even for me, staying up late doing a live stream talking about these shows, it's hard. But aside from that, I mean, the other thing is, you know, traveling for these shows and traveling out, right, on weekends that aren't big weekends like Memorial Day or Labor Day. That becomes a bit of a more tricky situation, especially for families. Kids have school on Mondays. You have parents who have to either take Mondays off or what have you. That is, like, don't discount that. Like, that has been a reason why I think you've seen a lot more families at these Saturday shows, because it's much easier for families to come out on a Saturday night than traditionally a Sunday night. The thing that I obviously, like, it was also mentioned there was Power Slap that I have to talk about for whatever reason, because Dana White just can't let go of freaking Power Slap. So that failure and abomination of a sports league, Power Slap, is still a thing. Dana White has pushed it very hard, and obviously it's worked its way into the TKO umbrella of things here. So it seems like on Fridays we're going to have a big Power Slap night that, you know, 12 people are going to watch, and that's fine. That's what it is. But I think, again, that's kind of Dana's own way of pushing his own, like, thing, because obviously Power Slap is a Dana White creation. It's a Dana White production, and look, that's his thing. It is what it is. I'm not going to comment on it. I personally think it's pretty dumb and stupid. I don't find it entertaining, but hey, there's people out there who do, so shout out to y'all. Now, the other interesting thing is, like, people are asking, like, why are UFC shows going to be on Saturdays? Why can't WWE be on Saturdays? And the real answer is that UFC, as far as, like, bringing in revenue for PLEs, is just bigger. It's just that simple. That they will get the preference for Saturday night, and UFC traditionally has always hosted their big shows on Saturdays, whereas WWE, as I said before just 2 years ago, they were hosting every pay-per-view at Sunday night. So for UFC, it's a continuation of the business model that has worked. And for WWE, it's a bit of a sacrifice, but it's also going back to a model that still worked. We'll see if it's as profitable as it used to be. I think, like it should be, like, or it should at least, the difference should be negligible. And I think the idea here is obviously get people to travel out. Get people to travel out and travel out for WWE and be like, oh, look, there's UFC in town too. Like, we might as well go, or we might as well check it out. And then, same thing with UFC. People are going to be like, the idea is they want people to come in for UFC and be like, oh, well, there's this WWE thing the next night. We don't have anything going on. Let's, I guess, go to that. That's the idea. I'm not sure how much that's going to work because, as we've seen, at least with the hardcore fan bases, people who like UFC do not like WWE or professional wrestling in general, and vice versa. There is a bit of a crossover, but I'm not sure it's as big as people expect it to be. There is me. I am that crossover. I like both, but that's a whole different story, I like people like that are a bit of not an anomaly, but they're not the majority of people, right? And that's why whenever you've seen people like Lesnar or people like Punk who've come into UFC, they are not well liked by the fans, and it's because they have that aura of being professional wrestlers. So we'll see how well that works. I'm skeptical of how effective that strategy of trying to get people to go to both shows is going to be. But look, they're trying it. They're going to do it. It's happening. So we better get used to it. But interesting stuff. We'll continue to talk about the story as it evolves. But we also got to talk about another story, that being one of Becky Lynch, whose contract is up just in a little bit. So here is a quote from FightfulSelect.com that updates us on Becky Lynch's contract. Quote, Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp has confirmed that Lynch is still on her previous contract and has not signed a new deal despite being Women's World Champion. There have been ongoing conversations regarding a new deal. However, as things stand, Becky Lynch's contract with WWE is up in roughly 3 weeks. The story also goes on to talk about how Becky is going to face Liv Morgan in just a few weeks at WWE King/Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia for the Women's World title. And that show is kind of right around then, right after then, I should say, is when her contract is really up. This is an interesting story. And again, I still think that Becky is going to end up re-signing with WWE. This is not me trying to put out there, oh man, Becky's gone. She's in AEW. She's in whatever. But we saw Damian Priest resign fairly, quickly. We saw Drew McIntyre also resign fairly quickly when the reports of his contract really being up and imminent came out. Same thing with Seth Rollins. We have known this about Becky Lynch. She's spoken about this on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Yet we're still here where they're having conversations. It's interesting. Again, I would still give it like a 90% chance Becky ends up staying with WWE. But there is that wild card where, she might want to see what is the other offer out there. And I'm telling you, the other offer out there is worth listening to. Because if I am Tony Khan, I am going to move heaven and earth, and I think he will move heaven and earth to try to get Becky Lynch. That is just the fact of the matter. Now, the other conversation that people like to have with this is how much of this is, TKO and WWE kind of mismanaging things. Obviously, they had recently let go of the person who was kind of in charge of these contract negotiations, because all of these contracts are coming up in such a short period of time. There was really a very small negotiating window, which hurts WWE's position if you really look at things, because they know that AEW is a viable competitor as far as offering high-level contracts go. So for them, I'm sure it's a priority to get Becky Lynch back, and this all kind of is leading into Queen of the Ring, where obviously she's facing Liv Morgan. People expected Morgan to win anyway, but if Becky is not signed by Queen of the Ring, it would be really interesting to see what the result is going to be, because I think like if she wins, I think that's like a no-brainer that not only is she signed, but they've like agreed like it's going to happen even if it's not public. But if she doesn't win, there is a little bit of a seed of doubt there. If we don't hear any updates on her contract status, I would expect something to be announced very soon, if at all. And if not, man, it's gonna be an interesting free agency year. But again, conventional wisdom would tell me that Becky is going to stay with WWE. But hey, never say never in professional wrestling. She could very easily debut in AEW in like 2 months. That would be an amazing universe, wouldn't it? But guys, let me know what you think about all of this. Is Becky going to stay with WWE? What do you think about UFC, WWE weekend pay-per-view events all in a row like that? Would you go to one? Would you not? Why? Let me know in the comments section. Also, be sure to smash that like button like there's no tomorrow. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.